Hello, everyone. This is Jerry. Sorry for being such a while since I made an autism video. Apparently the neurodiversity crowd, they're a bit upset about a recent scientific study that claims to have reversed what some of the articles mentioning it call severe autism, or what is clinically defined as level 3 autism. For those of you who are unaware, the DSM-5 has different levels of severity of autism from 1 to 3, 3 being the most severe, 1 being the most mild, which, as they define, requires substantial support needs. Now, I got curious and looked it up, and while I disagree with the claims of the study that the autism of these two young twin girls was completely reversed, the improvement of these girls in the study represents it's really represents profound improvements, and it's really obvious to me also that most of the people, really dragging this, crapping on this article, really didn't, study didn't really bother actually reading it. So, I mean, they automatically assumed the worst, and that the twin girls who were part of the study were abused to the point to where they masked to protect themselves in order to, I guess, please their parents and the other adults around them. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with masking, and by masking I mean autistic masking, not COVID masking, to be make that perfectly clear, it's when people mimic the behaviors of others to fit in. To put it simply, now most people do it to a certain degree, but autistic people have to do it to a much greater degree than most others to achieve the same result. Now, the ND crowd is right to express concern about the negative mental health effects of excessive masking on autistic people. I mean, I have had concerns about that for a while now, ever since I became familiar with the concept. But the simple truth is that there are many autistic people that are unable to mask, and I highly doubt that these twin girls who were diagnosed with level 3 autism at 20 months, which again is the most severe kind you can be diagnosed with, were somehow able to show the improvement reported in this study simply by just masking. It's literally impossible for people with autism cases that severe to be able to actually mask, even if they wanted to, when this can, in some cases, even be difficult for level 1 autistics like yours truly speaking to you in this video. And is it possible for more severe autistics to become less severe? Of course it is. I would have been considered a level 3 autistic myself by modern diagnostic criteria back when I was diagnosed. Probably been considered 2 during my teenage years, and would definitely have been considered level 1 since around my early 20s or so. But even if you take that out of the equation, it's highly improbable that any child that young, even if they aren't autistic, can somehow mask to the extent they're claiming here, these critics anyway. Anyone that's been around children longer than 2 seconds, especially the really young ones, they don't have as much of a filter as adults do, especially. I mean, I wasn't able to mask when I was the same age these girls were when this study first began, or the age they are now, certainly. I didn't even fully master it until my mid 20s. And, there are factors like autistic burnout, sensory overload, and extreme stress and fatigue that can cause my masks to be more likely to slip off every now and then, even though I can, in most cases, mask well enough to where, most people generally can't tell. But, it does often come at a price. It's not all ginger peachy, but they automatically assumed ABA therapy was used to achieve these results, and yes, the study confirms that was part of their treatment, but ABA is a bit of a buzzword catch-all that describes various different therapies, some effective, some not, and some indeed as abusive as they claim. It's not really as black and white a matter of it's all good or all bad. And the fact that this study doesn't give specifics about the particular ABA therapies means we can't really make assumptions here. But given the attention that they gave, I wouldn't. It seems to me that they use the better therapies most likely, but some autistic people don't respond well to ABA therapies, as the study itself admits, despite the fact that you know, the authors of the study support them due to it being effective in many other cases. So, once again, it's not black and white. I mean, I bring this up not as a gotcha to discredit the study, but to somehow bring up how nuanced the issue is. ABA therapies did work when I was younger, but probably wouldn't work on me now. It's because of how much I have essentially changed. But in addition to ABA therapies, the treatment plan also utilized an autism coach, which helped the parents implement what's called Children's Health and Illness Recovery Program, or CHIRP therapy, which I'm going to admit I haven't heard of until I read this study. But CHIRP therapy, as I understand it, is a therapy largely informed by a medical theory called the total allotistic load model, which states that chronic physical and mental stressors can accumulate in the body and mind, which can cause or contribute to various physical, mental, and neurological ailments. In this case, autism and the comorbidities these twin girls had caused chronic stress, which profoundly worsened their condition. This was done in the form of autism coach, again, as I mentioned before, which helped explain these stressors to the parents and implement plans to reduce them, which did include behavioral therapies, mitigation strategies, and addressing the gastrointestinal issues common to many autistic people, including by putting them on a fairly strict gluten-free, casein-free, low-sugar, and little, if any, processed food, as well as supplementation of various vitamin supplements and, you know, other supplements. They also had extensive occupational therapy and other specialized treatments. Now, some of which have been standard treatments for years and have a lot of, well formulated studies to indicate their effectiveness, but some are, a little newer, but according to the study, in addition to the twins' improved ATEC scores, numerous other behavioral and social improvements were noted after the implementation of the interventions. L and P's eye contact, language, and attention have all noticeably improved by fall 2022. This was accompanied by participation in a toddler playgroup 3 days per week and ultimately attending preschool 3 days per week in fall 2023. The pediatrician noted P had undergone, quote, a kind of miracle. Clinical reevaluation utilizing ADOS-2 at Children's National Hospital revealed that no sensory-related behaviors were observed in P, and it was noted that she demonstrated behavioral regulation, engagement, and spontaneous play, reliably socially responsive, and age-appropriate expressive and receptive language. P was still noted to have mildly repetitive speech and behavior. L was noted to have improved behavioral regulation, emerging requesting behavior, example giving objects, engagement during preferred activities, peekaboo, and use of emerging phrases. L was still noted to have reduced social communication and some repetitive speech and behavior, end quote. Well, I once again disagree with their conclusion that one or possibly both of these twin girls have had their autism reversed due to autism being a spectrum ranging considerably in terms of severity. I agree that this profound improvement is indeed very promising and warrants further study. It confirms what I've known for many years, in part due to my own personal experience, that some autistic people can indeed show profound improvements with the right supports. The all-autistic load model makes perfect sense to me scientifically because we have known even before this model was invented in 1993, that chronic stress can often have profoundly negative physical and mental effects. Chronic stress is one of the risk factors for heart attacks and strokes, for example. It also makes sense logically, as it helps explain the regression symptoms that's often seen in autistic people going through mental health crises, such as autistic burnout or depression. I notice that when I'm under chronic stress or fatigue, or I'm sick, my sensory issues tend to get worse. It's more difficult for me to mask, and I get overwhelmed much more easily. Now, we see this even to people that don't have conditions like autism, as well as to a certain extent. So why wouldn't we see that in autistic people? I find it an unfortunate irony that so many of the critics of this study fail to realize that if we took this more holistic approach to autism, mental health, or just health in general, that it would address so many of the concerns they have, instead of actually reading the article and researching its claims. We have this outrage culture where people reflexively react to stuff and don't bother to read it or try to understand. And of course, it's no different from the political realm because, quite frankly, the line has been blurred because the political and the social realm, unfortunately, due to how much they've blurred, there's really not much difference anymore to the detriment of society. Now, as it currently stands, there's no cure for autism, and it's unlikely there will be one in the near future. But if we are able to get better treatments, we can improve the quality of life of people that are autistic as much as possible. Why not? As an autistic person myself, while I reject the doom and gloom picture of it being an automatic death sentence, I also don't think the ND claims of it being the next stage of human evolution is completely accurate either, due to many autistic people not being super geniuses like Albert Einstein, no matter how good their supports are, and that's okay. My own IQ is higher than average, I'm grateful for that, but IQ is just one matter of functioning, and you can have an IQ and still high IQ and still have some profound challenges. But the outrage culture, in addition to many endears believing these essentially half truths at best and outright lies that autism therapies being psychological abuse or somehow being part of an effort to commit genocide against autistic people, is exactly why most of the endears are frankly wrong about this study. I mean, if there's a cure someday, I think the decision to take it or not should be entirely with autistic people themselves, their parents, guardians, or if their condition is severe enough to not be able to make such decisions on their own. I don't think we as a community should guilt or shame other autistic people because they might want to take a hypothetical cure if it's available to them. Now, when I was diagnosed, things were tough for autistic people. The DSM-3 was in effect when I was diagnosed, and it was the first edition of the DSM that actually suggested that autism and schizophrenia might possibly not be the same thing. I was blown away when I first read that because it really put into perspective how far we've come, and it really makes the pessimism of the doctor who diagnosed me make much more sense in hindsight. And because depending on that doctor's age, the DSM-2 or perhaps even the DSM-1 might have been in effect when he first went to medical school. And, I am where I am today in large part thanks to then experimental therapies I got when I was at a young age at this program at UCSD. And some of them, these twin girls have likely received as well, but they've also gotten other therapies in addition to that from the sounds of this study. And when I bring up my early diagnosis, I sometimes get criticized for being privileged because of my criticism of self diagnosis. Now, instead of considering the fact that my symptoms may have been that severe, privileged or not, I mean, we as a community should encourage making it easier for the coming generations so we can really uplift the community. The bottom line is, it's not just about you or just about me, it's about all of us. And it's for that reason that I applaud this study and encourage further study into this in the future, and urge my brothers and sisters, both in and outside the autism community, to really consider doing the same thing. Until then, I'll see you a bit.